this morning. I just pray that you would be very near to
feel like you guys are pretty far back there, some of you guys. I'm not a preacher, so this is a little scary. So I wanted this to feel more like a small group discipleship class, which is what it is, right? So I'm excited to be here this morning. Not excited because I have anything to share that's that far out or anything. I'm excited because this is one of the favorite subjects, the best subject in my life that I've probably invested more time and effort into than about anything else. Hopefully besides my relationship with God. But I love leadership. I love leading people. And it's just been a journey that I've been on personally for many years. And just excited to share with you guys some of the things that I've learned, not because I have the answers or because, more because I've learned lessons the hard way, a lot of lessons the hard way. And I've watched leaders for years. I've watched good ones. I've watched bad leaders. And I've wondered how some groups follow a leader over a cliff almost. Even leaders that are bad. Even Hitler was really a good leader, evil leader, but he led people. He had a following. So there's good leaders and there's bad leaders. And then there's even some leaders that are doing things really well and they're trying to lead good people to do a good thing and nobody follows them. And I'm not sure why that is. And hopefully this morning we can learn about some of that together. I've studied that quite a bit. I want to thank Scott for the invitation this morning. And Scott and I grew up together. I think most of you know that, but probably since we were 2 or 3 years old, we've been best friends and did everything together. Scott knows the bad, the ugly, probably every secret in my life. Scott knows, and some embarrassing ones. Scott and I haven't connected that much in the last 20 years, and just in the last couple of years, we started connecting again. And I want to thank Scott for really spearheading that and reaching out to that. I love just when old friends can get together again, and just there's so many similarities in our lives, and there's a lot we can catch up on. And we're looking forward to doing more of that in the future here, and I'm excited about that. Scott's growth in leadership, he had his job, has been impressive to me. Here at the church, it's just fun to see an old friend like that that God's using, and it's been impressive to watch that, Scott. It's hard to imagine that we've both been called to leadership in some level, both in business and in church on various levels. I think it's awesome that these discipleship classes are happening here. So I just want to say hats off to the leadership here for doing that. I think more churches need to do some of this stuff. Maybe it's because it's one of my pet things, but I think we could use more of this. And Scott was actually at Sandy Ridge about a month ago sharing on vision as one of, I believe, your first one of these. And so that was awesome. It was a great sermon, and I took a bunch of notes on that. It was good. So how many of you have heard the phrase, everyone's a leader? Everyone's a leader. Have you guys heard that? Everyone's leading somebody. Whether it's marriage, family, work, church, boards you're serving on, community things that you're helping out with. Everyone's a leader. I've heard that so many times, and I guess I'd like to disagree with that a little bit. Not sure that I would say everyone is a leader. I like to say that everyone can become a leader, but it's being poorly done so much in the world today, and I don't believe anyone's naturally born to be a leader or to lead people. We don't just naturally, come out of the womb and we're, he's a leader, he's not, he's a leader, he's not. It's just not that way. But I think we can grow and become what God wants us to be in our roles and become a leader instead of a boss or a manager. And I want to share a little bit of that this morning. I learned a lot of things the hard way. Most of you probably know some of my story, but I'll share just a little bit about that. I dropped out. I'm a high school dropout, dropped out after 9th grade, and Dad asked me if I want to help him run the family welding business, and I said sure. I hated school, so I dropped out and started helping Dad run the family business there. My mom died a few short years after that when I was 24 years old, and my dad kind of checked out there at the business emotionally in many, many ways, and it was hard on me. I always say when I lost my mom, I also lost my dad in many ways, and it was just hard to see that. So he was a good dad. He was a great grandfather to my kids and all that. But it just changed everything. And I was a very young leader, and I wasn't really a leader. I was a boss. I started being a boss at a very young age and made a ton of mistakes. But Dad used to beg me to read leadership books and to read more stuff and spend time in the Scripture, but especially reading leadership books. I just said, man, Johnny, you're a leader, and he would quote at least a version of Harry Truman's quote: "Not all readers become leaders, but all leaders must be readers." So if you're a leader, you got to be a reader. And Dad, I don't know how many times he told me that, and I would kind of laugh and chuckle and ignore it completely. And one of the I heard him tell me that over and over again, but I paid very little attention to it. I hated reading. I hated personal growth. It was a waste of time to me, but I also thought I had the answers to how things were going okay. They weren't going great, but they were going okay, and I knew what I was doing. And there's a lot of arrogance in my life back in those days. I remember him holding up this very copy, John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. This is my dad's copy. And quoting things like, "He who thinks he leads but has no followers is only on a walk." I don't know if you guys have heard that before. That's one of Maxwell's quotes. So you're only on a walk. If nobody's following you, you're not a leader. There's nobody following you. And I just never looked at the book for years. I regret to tell you I ignored too much of his advice because I thought I knew what I was doing. I want to add that he was a good leader. Dad let me lead in some very good ways. He delegated to me. He taught me delegation. Probably the three things I would talk about is delegation, integrity, and vision that I learned from my dad. He taught me huge lessons about that. Just working with him a lot. But it wasn't until my dad got sick about 6 years ago and passed away soon after that I got desperate for help. And I knew that I wanted to be a boss. I didn't want to be a boss or a manager. I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to lead people. I wanted to impact people. And really, out of desperation, I went through his library and I found this very book, and it changed my life. This is the first book I read. Not exactly, but I read almost nothing before this, and just paged through all his markups and underlines and stars and all kinds of things he's got in here. And it all felt familiar because he had told me half this stuff already. And so this is a special book to me. We'll talk a little bit more about that later at the end. So I've been a boss for probably 25 years, but only been leading people for the past 6, and learning to lead people for the past 6. And where do you start talking about leading people? How do you summarize the hundreds of leadership books and thousands of leadership books that are out there and about leading people and guiding people and caring for people and all that? It is absolutely endless. And we'll go to the next slide here. But I'll do my best this morning to whet your appetite at least, and to be the leader that God's calling you to be, leading the people in your life this morning. So yeah, I said there's thousands of books. So this person read this N.K. Carlson wrote this article. You guys can see that pretty well. With so many leadership books, why are there so many bad leaders? That's kind of my question. Why can't people figure it out? Each year, this is what he says, each year approximately 4.8 billion leadership books are written, and he's just exaggerating. That's not true. I said, don't check me on that. And he said, clearly there's a disconnect between the books being written and the bosses doing their on the ground managing. And so, again, there's a lot of managers and bosses. There's good leaders are kind of hard to find. And even in a church, even in a business, even in a church, it's just a lot of people are scared to stand up and say, I can do this. Yes, I can do that. I can lead, and I can take care of that. Not a huge Harvard fan, but this is pretty interesting. I want to read this. Harvard did this survey. According to a recent survey, there are more than 15,000 books on leadership in print. Articles on leadership number in the thousands each year. The obvious conclusions can be drawn from these facts that there are more books and articles on leadership available than we can ever hope to read, and that leadership clearly is a crucial and abiding topic of interest to countless women and men in society. Despite the popularity of the topic, leadership remains a paradox. People who seek to understand it by reading a primer on the topic will inevitably be frustrated and disappointed. Leadership, after all, is an art, not a science. Leadership is not limited to professional field or industry, be it corporate, governmental, military, academic, religious, which is where we're at today, or service. Leaders transcend the confines of a defining box. First of all, leaders are not born, but evolve into that role. According to Warren Bennis, a noted authority on leadership, the most dangerous leadership myth is that leaders are born, that there is a generic factor to leadership. That's nonsense. In fact, the opposite is true. Leaders are made rather than born. And we look around today and we see the leaders in our world today, and it's ridiculous. I mean, we if you follow Hollywood at all, if you follow what's happening in Washington, you follow our president, you follow the rappers, or you follow you follow everybody. There's just not a lot of good leaders out there. They're actually mostly bad leaders, and even if they're there's a few that are maybe doing some bad and evil things that are actually have some good leadership skills, but as a whole, they don't practice what they preach. They live a different life than what they say they do. All the Nancy Pelosi's against carbon emissions, but she flies a big jet, and all those things they just don't line up. People see that and they say, I don't want to follow that. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. And most leadership content, more leadership content than ever before. We can go down the road, we can listen to podcasts and audiobooks and go to conferences and lectures, and universities are teaching leadership. Social media is just overwhelmed with leadership content these days. Everybody wants to be a coach and a leadership advisor, and it's just overwhelming. And yet, you look around, you say, man, there's so many businesses and there's so many churches that are struggling, and you wonder why. What's going on with that? A boss is not necessarily a leader. That's who I was at one point. A boss is not a leader. A manager is not necessarily a leader. And a manager can have a meeting and bore his people to death, talk about all the answers, not involve his people in any of the decisions, and really be a dictator in many ways. And that's what happens to us as people with leadership like that, is we just go nuts. We just check out, we tone out, we don't care. And so that's not what good leaders do. There's so many examples in history of leaders, good and bad, Old Testament, New Testament. We'll be looking at a few different examples today. I want to talk about, I hesitate even bringing this up because it might seem like I'm looking at pop culture. I don't want to do that. But I want to look at William Wallace, which is a true story. William Wallace lived from 1270 to 1305. He was a Scottish knight and national hero who fought for his country's independence from England. Much like we did a few hundred years later there, as our forefathers did here in the U.S. Wallace famously led the Scots to victory against a larger English army at the Battle of Stirling Bridge in September of 1297. On August 23rd, 1305, Wallace was found guilty of treason and sentenced to death in London. Wallace was killed using one of the most brutal punishments in the medieval era, and really was tortured like many of our ancestors were for their faith. And I'm not comparing that we should fight. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm looking at him and his ability to lead people. And he absolutely had a following. And they defeated people because he had a vision and he knew where they're going. He knew what leadership was. Wallace's head was dipped in tar and placed on a pike on the London Bridge. It was just sickening because of what he stood for and the people he wanted to be free from. So there's a movie made about that. I'm not promoting the movie at all, but there's a lot of leadership examples that come out of his story. And this is one of them that I've just really liked. There's a few we'll look at. But William Wallace supposedly said something like this: "There's a difference between us." He's talking to a nobleman who had title and authority, and they were trying to make peace with England, and it wasn't working. And this is what William Wallace said. There's a difference between us. You think the people of this country exist to provide you with position. I think your position exists to provide those people with freedom, and I go to make sure they have it. And so position and title also, so a boss and a manager aren't leaders, or aren't leading people. They can try, but they're not really leading people by their hearts. Position and title don't do that. Position and title never make you a leader. You can be a boss, but never lead people anywhere. You can have children, but never be a loving father to them. You can be the president of a company with thousands of employees and never truly lead them. You can be a teacher, but never care enough to add value to your students or lead them in that way. You can be a pastor, but not shepherd the hearts of your flock. You can be elected governor of this state and never have the courage to make a tough decision when it needs to be made. And so that's what we see often in the world. We see title and position. We don't see a whole lot of true leadership when somebody's leading people for the right reasons without rank and title. I'm a pretty simple guy. I'm a high school dropout, like I said, so leadership for dummies sounds pretty good to me. There actually is a book like this as well. Of course there is. There's a book on everything. So why would there not be a Leadership for Dummies? So what if we can make this a little bit easier today? And I've tried to just break this down. Some of the things that I've learned broke this down. Even this book here has got 21 laws, and I think John's written 50 books with a ton of laws. So it's truly endless. I'd like to break this down to 6 simple things this morning. And I'm not calling you guys dummies, but I'm the dummy here, and so I want to share that with you. 6 steps of leading people. I want to hopefully break this down, and in the short time we have together this morning, share what I feel I've learned in my life and what I'm still working to employ in my life. Leaders, people that are leading people, cast a vision. Number 1. Number 2, they build a great team. Number 3, they love the people they're serving. Love the people you're serving. Number 4, walk ahead and lead them. And just lead them. And we'll go more into that later. But just that very fact, the word lead, people want to be led, and people want to know where we're going and where we're heading. So just lead them. Walk ahead of them out front. Create momentum with consistency as a leader. So after you're leading for a while, it's amazing. I love the word momentum, but the ball starts rolling, and we'll look at that a little bit. Number 6 is just start where you are. So casting a vision. People are asking, people want to know where they're going. People are asking, where are you leading us? Where are you taking us? Where are we going? People want to know that answer. People don't want to be blindfolded. People don't want to blindly follow. They want to know where we're heading, where we're going. What's the vision? And a person leading people casts a vision for the people he's leading. Not big. It doesn't have to always be big. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to paint your face blue to have vision. But a person leading people is casting a vision to his team. Whether it's just the vision for that day, we're going to get this and this and this done today. That's what we're going to. That's the goals, and that's what we're going to get done. People go, okay, great. Well, now that I know that, we can go. People want to know, and they want to feel that. Habakkuk 2:2 says that then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain. I'm a big fan of writing the vision down. Don't just say it. Don't just speak it. Write it down. Give it to your people, the people that you're leading. Whether it's 100 people or 1 person or 2 people, whether it's your family, write the vision and make it plain on tablets. Then he may run who reads it. A leader gives hope for a brighter future. What's up, what's ahead, and what's coming. And you know, there's dark times in life, there's hard things we face, but I believe a leader always in his vision gives hope and gives a hope for a brighter future. And that's what Donald Trump did in 2016. I'll use him as an example here. Whether you're a Trump fan or not, I don't really care. We're looking at Hitler, and we're looking at Donald Trump, and we're looking at Jeb Bush here. But why did he get elected? I believe is because he gave that hope for a brighter future, and he didn't make it about himself. He gave a vision that millions of Americans could rally around. He said, we're going to make America great again. That's the vision. We're going to go there, and we're all going to be in it together. Jeb said, I can do this. Jeb said, I can fix it. Jeb can fix it. And nobody really wants a hero. They want to be the hero. So leaders make other people the hero and the star of the show, and they make them important in how they're leading, and they let them be involved in these things that they're doing. Whatever the mission is, good leaders are letting the people feel like they're part of what's going on and what's happening. Martin Luther King Jr. I was in D.C. last fall for the first time and visited his statue there, and I again. This is not political, or whether you like Martin Luther King Jr. or what he stood for or not. That's not the point here. But he said, I read his whole speech, and it's incredible. You know, he was a minister, he was a pastor, a minister during the civil rights movement. And from what I can tell, he was never violent, and he actually kept his people from becoming violent. And but this is what he spoke, and there was millions of people hearing this speech that day, his I Have a Dream speech. This is just a little part of it. He said, I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. This is scripture here. And every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. The glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope, and this is the faith I go back to the South with. And the South was under major oppression still with slavery and all that. And with this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope, With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation to a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And people just got it. People just got it. White, black, all races felt that, and they wanted that. He had a lot of haters. They burned his house down. They did a lot of things to him that were evil. But from what I can tell and what I can read, he never lashed out. In fact, he told his people, "Don't you dare lash out. It's okay. We're not going to fight back." But that's what a vision can do for people. And people want to follow somebody who says we're going there, and that's how we're going to do it. That's hope for a brighter future. I think we can do that in every single place that we're leading at today, regardless if it's 2 people, 3 people, or 100 people. Joshua and Caleb is I've been studying them a lot in the last year, and I call them the early visionaries. And I'm not sure if I want to read all of this, but I think we probably should. I think it's worth reading here. But it's also proof that it doesn't always happen right away. Just like Martin Luther's vision didn't happen right away. We're a lot closer today than what we probably were back then for him. And again, the country's a mess. It's divided in other really bad ways, and it's a mess. But his vision didn't come to fruition. In fact, he died and obviously got assassinated and all that. You guys know that story. But it didn't come to fruition right away, just like Joshua and Caleb's didn't either. And even though they were genius visionaries, if I can call them that. Let's read that, Numbers 14 here. Then the whole community began weeping aloud, and they cried all night. Their voices rose in a great chorus of protest against Moses and Aaron. If only we had died in Egypt, or even in the wilderness, they complained. Why is the Lord taking us to this country and only to have us die in battle? Our wives and our little ones will be carried off as plunder. How many of you guys have heard people talk that way? If you're ever leading people, you hear that all the time. And you give a bonus out, it's not enough. You say we're going this way, and they want to go that way. And Moses leading these people, it's unbelievable. People are hard. It's really hard to lead people well, and to do that successfully. It's really, really hard. And that's why the consistency thing we'll talk about later is so important, because eventually I believe it does pay off. So they're just whining here. Then they plotted among themselves, let's choose a new leader and go back to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground before the whole community of Israel. Jumping ahead a little bit there is 2 of the men who had explored the land, Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, tore their clothing. They said to all the people of Israel, and here's what we want to focus in on. The land we traveled through and explored is a wonderful land. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us safely into that land and give it to us. It is a rich land flowing with milk and honey. Do not rebel against the Lord, and don't be afraid of the people of the land. They are only helpless prey to us. They have no protection, but the Lord is with us. Don't be afraid of them. That is vision, guys. It's vision. And sadly enough, even that, that's a quote from what they said. This is a different version. We can read it, but they all say about the same thing. And even with that, the people didn't get it. And that's okay. They won't all get it right away. The next generation got it, but it took 40 years for them to realize this. And I think it's neat how God blesses the visionaries then as well in their case here. The whole community started stoning. So they said that. Did it work? No. They wanted to stone him in right away. And then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, how long must I put up with this wicked community and its complaints about me? Yes, I have heard the complaints the Israelites are making against me. Now tell me this, as surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you the very things I heard you say. You will all drop dead in the wilderness because you complained against me. Every one of you who was 20 years old or older and was included in the registration will die. You will not enter and occupy the land I swore to you. The only exceptions will be Caleb and Joshua. The 10 men, jumping ahead there a little bit, the 10 men Moses had sent to explore the land, the ones who incited the rebellion against the Lord, the non-visionaries, they could have all agreed. They were walking back there with the grapes. They could have all been talking, and I'm guessing they were talking the whole way back. I'm guessing that Joshua and Caleb's speech started, weeks before when they were walking back. They were trying to sell them on this idea. And if you've ever sat on a table of people who don't get a vision, it can be hard. You're trying to sell that vision. You're trying to sell your idea, and or even to your wife. Maybe your vision, you're selling a vision to your wife about building a new house or moving or whatever it might be. It can be sometimes they don't get it, and that's what happened here. But the other 10 men were struck dead before the Lord with a plague. Of the 12 men who had explored the land, only Joshua and Caleb remained alive. When Moses reported the Lord's words to the Israelites, the people were filled with grief. And then they actually tried to come back right away. They said, we want to go back. Of course, after it was too late, they wanted to come back, and we can do this after all. And the Lord said, no, it's not going to happen. And they had missed their chance. But these were some of the earliest visionaries I can find. Obviously, Abraham was a visionary and left all that as well. But I love the fact of how they spoke. I love the words they spoke to the people. And even then, sometimes it doesn't quite pay off right away. But I believe after consistency over and over again, finally, people do get it eventually. Proverbs says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And that's what happened there to these people. They perished in the wilderness. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. And so let's have vision, and let's also write it down, back to what I said earlier. Step 2 is building a great team. I love the word team, and it could be so cliche. Again, every book, every podcast, everything you listen to is build a team. Everybody wants to have a team. It's a catchphrase right now, but I believe it's real and it's true. And but building a team is really important because it matters with Leon what you're doing at school. You have a team of teachers that work for you, and unless they feel like they're part of something that's bigger than them, everybody's going in a different direction, and you don't gain that synergy at all, which we'll talk about here. The definition of a nightmare is a great dream or a great vision. A great dream with a bad team is the example of a nightmare there. And so you want to have people that are on the bus that are heading there with you, and you're going the same direction. One of my favorite quotes about teamwork is from Patrick Lencioni here, and one of the best examples of that is rowing teams. I believe there's 10 people on that team. Some of you may know better than I do, but I believe there's 10 people there. It could be 9. I think there's 8 rows in the water, and there's one guy in the front. But I think somebody know, is it 9 or 10? I can never really quite tell. It's 9. Okay, the guy in the front doesn't row, and I think he steers the rudder. So. A friend of mine has a daughter who was in rowing in high school, and I think you're right. I think it is 9. But Pat Lencioni here says this, and it just one of my favorite quotes here is, not finance, not strategy, not technology. It is teamwork that remains the ultimate competitive advantage, both because it is so powerful and so rare. If you could get all the people in an organization rowing in the same direction, you could dominate any industry, and let's just say any church, any ministry, in any market, against any competition at any time. That's what teamwork does. It's powerful. It's absolutely powerful. John Maxwell says, one is too small of a number to achieve greatness. And no accomplishment of real value has ever been achieved by a human being working alone. And it's true. Good or bad things being done in the world have always been with more than one person. And that's teamwork. Another good example of that is draft horses. And I was thinking about Glenn. Where's Glenn at? There we go, Glenn. So I don't know why I thought about you when I was putting this together, and I was thinking about Glenn's probably going to laugh at my stuff because you're a horse guy and probably know all the stuff here. I know horses pretty well, but not the draft horse stuff. But pretty awesome examples here of synergy. The definition of synergy is the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. In other words, it's amazing. You don't just get Scott and Tony together and all of a sudden it's doubled. Oh, awesome! It's way more than that. When a team gains synergy, it's really fun to happen. It's kind of like momentum. That's why momentum happens many times, is because of the synergy that Scott and Tony working together can do more than just them two together. I'm not calling you guys horses or anything, but that's the idea. A single draft horse, I'm told, can pull up to 8,000 pounds. That's a big draft horse, a trained draft horse. A well-trained team of draft horses don't just do 8 times 2, 16,000 pounds. Many of them do 3X, which is 24,000 pounds, and then some of them do 4X. They actually double what they could pull on their own as a team. And I researched this a little bit, and it's hard to understand how these competitions work. There's national champions every year and all that. But from what I can tell, it's even better than that, because the world record is, and people are arguing about what the record actually is, but supposedly it's not actually this photo, but it was something similar. It was in 1924, and there's a team of draft horses that pulled 90,000 pounds together. I don't know if it was logs or what they were doing exactly, but incredible. And that's what so the idea is, what the pros say is that a team of draft horses that are trained together to work together do a lot more than when you just grab, Bessie and Buck over here, put them together, never met each other. They won't do near as well as the ones that are trained to work together, which is an analogy there in teamwork for us today. So while the team is important, very important, a good leader also recognizes the value of each individual person on the team. So we don't just put them all together, group them together. Every team member, a church is a body, as we read in the Bible, it's compared to our bodies, and everybody has a part, an arm and a leg and a head, and it's very important to recognize the individual talents of my father-in-law Andy. What can Andy do for the church here? What can Patrick do for the church here? And it's important to recognize that. And in basketball, that's often recognized. There's ball hogs that can play basketball, and it doesn't. Michael Jordan was kind of a ball hog. He still believed in teamwork, but the best teams are most successful teams are ones that work together and make the goals and win together as a team. A good leader understands that he can accomplish much more with his team than he can on his own. A good leader is not controlling, but instead delegates to the individual strengths of everyone on the team. You can't have an orchestra, you can't have a band, you can't have a choir unless everybody. If Phil starts singing soprano out of the blue, it's just not going to work. He's not good at soprano, but he needs somebody else to do the soprano part. He can do the bass, and so it's very important to recognize the strengths of each team, and then. Delegation is part of the team building thing as well, and I love delegation because it's powerful. And when a leader's not controlling and he's willing to delegate, it's amazing how quickly somebody that's doing something for you can do it better than you can because they're focused on that and they can do a better job than you could. Craig Rochelle, one of my favorite quotes here. I have a lot of favorite quotes, but Craig Rochelle is a pastor. And I love this about control and growth. You can have control or you can have growth, but you can't have both. And that's powerful because unless you delegate, unless you learn how to delegate and give up control in your team, in the people that you're leading, you will never have growth. And you'll be a one-man show, one-armed bandit, as we call it, trying to do it all on your own, trying to juggle all the balls in the air on your own. It's not fun. It doesn't get the job done, actually. So. Number three, I have loving the people that so we talked about, the team that we built, but now you have to love the team, love the people that you're leading. So powerful, and especially in the setting of the church. And I know you guys are looking at vision and a lot of different things as a church and discipling, but this probably plays, more accurately than anywhere else in the world of business. But I believe it's just as important there as well in many ways too. But as a church, we're called to do that, in the Bible as a church. So love the people you're leading. Matthew 22 says, man walked up to Jesus, was asking him, teacher, which is the most important commandment of the law of Moses? Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. And I like to break that down to just simply, as we're leading people, Jesus taught us to love God, to love him, and to love people. Love God, love people. And if you do that as you're leading people, and you truly love God, and you serve him with all your heart, and then you love the people around you, people want to follow a guy like that. People want to follow a guy who loves them, who cares about them, and who's following the Lord as well. John 10 says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I believe that's what we're called to do. Here again, especially in the church. Maybe especially in the school, but in the nonprofits. But I believe it's across the board. I believe we're called to lay down our life for the people that we're leading every day. And Because those people may need Jesus. Those people may need the Lord. They may be going through marriage problems. But if you love them, they sense that, they feel that from you. They will let you lead them. They will follow a leader that cares for them, whether they're a believer or not. There's couple thoughts here that deeply love the people you're leading. A good leader is like a waterfall, cascading down and offering life-giving, nourishing water to the people in his care. I was in Dominican, Janet and I were in Dominican for 10 days, just 2 weeks ago for our 20th anniversary. We had a wonderful time. So I just put these in last night. I just thought about this example, and I just used this. There's a beautiful waterfall there we went back to, and it was a pool at the bottom there, and this waterfall just cascaded over the edge of there. And then you could go in there and just let the water fall, and that's me in the picture there. But you just stood there, and the water would just run over you, and it was engulfing. And that's the picture that I got when I was thinking about. That's what a leader does to the people he's loving and he's leading. It just flows out of him, and the people feel that love. It was refreshing. It was a very hot day, so it was very refreshing, and it just felt amazing to have that water running all over you, and that's what a good leader does. He lets his love cascade over the people that he's leading. You cannot give what you do not have, and so I think the love God part is first. You can't get water from an empty well. So if your well is empty, and you're not getting love from the Master, you're not getting love from God, you won't be able to pass it out to the people that you're caring for. Lynn won't be able to care for the ladies that works at his store unless he's getting it from the source. And so I believe firmly that you can't give what you don't have. And when you have that, you can add value to the people. You can add value to the people that you're serving every day. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's what I have on loving the people that we're leading this morning. Step 4 I felt is walking ahead and leading the people. And this is difficult because when you just say just lead them, well, what does that mean? What does it mean to just lead the people that you're leading? And it comes more natural for some than others. I want to recognize that, but I believe we talked about Glenn in the I guess it was Phil in the Sunday school class this morning about Adam and Eve, and I was thinking about that. And then Adam was called to lead Eve. I believe that strongly, that Adam was called. We as men are called to lead, and so what does it take to be assertive and to make decisions and to actually be that leader for the people that are coming behind us? And I don't have all the answers for that. It's kind of more of an art than a science, but I do want to call us this morning to lead, to just lead. Walk ahead of the people that you're leading and lead them. They want to know where to go. Lead them. So many men are lost. They're paralyzed by indecision. They have no idea which way to turn. They have no idea which way to go. And the women feel that. The women of the world today feel that. They know the men don't have a clue where they're going. Look at the leaders they're looking at. They don't have a clue. And we're careful. We're politically correct. We're doing all these things right. And at the end of the day, everybody's just paralyzed. They don't know where to go. And it's amazing to me to see what happens when somebody just says, we're going this way. We're going over here. We're going down that road. Come, let's go. And at the end of the day, people follow that at the end of the day most times. There's a few that you'll lose. Most of the time when a leader just knows where he's going and God's called him to lead those people, they will follow him. George S. Patton said, a good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. And that's referring to indecision. So we could just stand around forever and say, I don't know what to do, I don't know what's right and what's wrong, and I don't believe Scott leads that way here at all. And I'm grateful for that. And I think a leader wants to know, a leader needs to have clarity. And in the Christian world, we have that relationship with God, we have the Holy Spirit to tell us where to go, and just trust that. And it's not always going to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and you can always shift and change, but it's better to start going down the road and heading somewhere than heading nowhere and waiting for 20 years to know what to do. And I have just for years seen men of all ages. And I've said this before to a lot of people, and I've seen 40 and 50-year-old little boys who have never learned to lead because they've never learned that from their father. They've never been delegated something from their father. They live in fear because they've never been taught how to lead. And so there's 50-year-old little boys that have never learned how to step up and say, okay, let's go that way. And all of a sudden, Dad's gone, and they don't know what they're doing or where they're going or where they're heading. And I felt some of that when Dad was gone, because my mom and Dad died very young, and so I was 37 years old, and for the first time I said, I'm the oldest one in my family. I don't know where I'm going. Like, where am I going? And usually you don't get that till you're hopefully 60. But it was, I felt that very keenly after he passed. But yeah, let's not be a lost 50-year-old boy that doesn't know where to go. Let's not be paralyzed by fear. Let's make a decision and go somewhere that's heading the right direction. And again, you can always course correct a little bit if you're off, but making no decision is worse. Going back to William Wallace here again, example here is, so he's talking to one of the noblemen here, and he's nobleman's telling him how, we're got to work with the English to get freedom. We can't just go fight, and it's not going to work. And so William Wallace asks, he said, now tell me, what does it mean to be noble? You're a nobleman. What does that mean? He says, your title gives you claim to the throne of our country, but men don't follow titles, they follow courage. Our people know you, and they respect you. And if you would just lead them to freedom, they'd follow you, and so would I. That's powerful. It's saying what a lot of people feel. Sometimes I look at what's from the outside of an organization, I look at it and I say, if you would just lead them, they'd follow you. Like they just want to know where to go. They just want to know where to head. And I cringe and I cry sometimes for when I see indecision and lack of leadership. But so when I say just lead, that's what I'm referring to. Just lead them. Your wives, your families, the people under your care. If it's here at church or if it's in business, if it's a committee you're serving on, whatever it is. If you're chairing a committee somewhere, lead. Show up with your things planned. Just lead them. That's what they want. Show up with everything planned, everything in place, do your job, do what God's called you to do, and lead them. A leader doesn't herd his people like a cowboy. We want to be cowboys. Everybody, it's the coolest thing in the world. We've all seen the cowboys. I want to be a cowboy. Well, really, we don't. That's really the opposite of what God has called us to be. We can't be behind the herd and whipping and getting them, and herding them in. That's not what a leader does. That's not what leading people looks like. Interestingly, in my research on leadership, it seems like a voluntary organization like a church. It's where the purest examples of leadership are found. And there's good reason for that. A cowboy can persuade by cracking his whip. He can say, we're going that way, and he can make him go. A boss has positional leadership, a positional authority because of his position. His boss told him, you're in charge of these 50 people, make them do what you're going to do and get production out the door. That's a boss. But he can fire or give raises, so the people will follow and will follow his lead to some extent because it's a positional leadership. In the military, leaders use their rank, to scream and yell at their people and get them into shape and lead. That's done by rank. So, but in a church, you guys are all volunteers. There's nobody getting paid as far as I know here, and so a church is the purest form of that. If a leader in a church has no influence with his people, they won't follow him. And so when you see a church doing it well, that's probably the purest form of good leader, because there's nobody there cracking the whip. Hopefully not. People can walk out the door, and that's accepted. It's not. You're not forced to stay there, or you're not scared to because you might lose your job, and you might you can't afford to quit your job, whatever. A church is perhaps the place where good leadership is the most necessary. And so I just thought that was interesting this morning, especially as we're here at a church. So the purest form of leadership is done in the setting of a church usually. John Maxwell says, a leader knows the way and shows the way. He says, back to what I was saying, he says, follow me, we're going this way. That's where we're heading, that's where we're going. We're going down this road, come, we're going this way. And he's not behind them with a whip, cracking a whip. And obviously in the Bible, we see the example of a shepherd. The leader goes out in front and leads like a shepherd. That's what he does. And I believe it's not just for the church. I don't believe it's, Patrick, I think it fits you as well. I think if you lead the people at your job like a shepherd, they'll follow you as well. So you have a double role, right? You're a pastor, but you're also a leader at work. I believe you are. And so people want to see you walk out front and lead them, and they'll follow you if you have the other steps in place: the vision, the love, and the care for them. And the funnest part, I think, about leadership is momentum. When you do all these other four things, momentum just starts. And so creating momentum with consistency is how I've worded that. When you grab those balls and you pit one and they keep going, that's momentum. It just keeps going for a good period of time. And that's without you touching it. You started it, but then it goes on its own. And that's what consistency does as a leader. All of a sudden, things start happening without you. All of a sudden, people are following you. You're not even telling them anymore to follow you. You're just walking. And you're not just out for a walk. There's people just following you because they're drawn to you. They're drawn to who you are. They're drawn to you because you know they know you love them. They're drawn to you because they know you care about them. That's momentum gained there. And it's 100 little things to gain momentum as we're leading people, I believe. It's saying good morning. It's showing kindness every single day. It's doing the little right things over and over and over again. And never lashing out, never being that boss that's lashing out, and whatever setting you're in, not overdoing your authority as an authoritarian, not being who Hitler was. You're a shepherd, and you're just making those decisions every single day in the tough times. You're not overreacting. You're not getting angry or hot. You're trying to do that. That's a daily decision you make with the Holy Spirit helping you. Good leadership is magnetic. Others from the outside will start to take notice of what you're doing. They will take part of the movement that you've created. Whatever it is, church, school, business, community project, whatever it is, I believe people see good leadership because, again, it's so rare, and they want to follow that. And it's so satisfying then to see that snowball rolling down the hill. That snowball started out small. You started building, you were packing it together. Everything initially of that snowball was you. You packed it together and you did your best, and all of a sudden people started jumping on, and all of a sudden it started rolling down the hill a little bit, and all of a sudden it's rolling down the hill, and you're just tapping it. You're just steering it every now and then to make sure it's staying aligned. This is momentum, and it's a beautiful thing. Good leadership is rewarded with momentum. Even with momentum going, you never stop doing the other steps. The other four steps are very, very important. You never set the cruise control and just walk away. You're still the shepherd. You're still leading those people every day. Your team still needs you to be present and engaged. You're still walking ahead, encouraging them, steering them, adjusting the course as needed. The people you were training a year ago have caught your vision and are now carrying the torch and leading other people as well. That's when that snowball gets thicker and heavier and everything else. And all of a sudden, you turn around and there's people doing what you were doing a year ago, and it's just so exciting. Especially when it's the Lord's work and you see that happening. Wade, I'm sure that feels good to have Scott. The snowball's rolling for you today, and I think that's awesome. And what you started is rolling on without you. And that's very rewarding. Instead of the pushing the snowball uphill when we started it, it's rolling downhill by itself because of all the blood, sweat, and tears that you put in earlier to get it started. And last point number 6, and really there's 5 points, but the last point is about what you do with all this. And I believe you start right where you're at. And it's a little kid on a starting line there ready to go. And I wish I had the energy of my 5-year-old son this morning to start and go and run. He's running everywhere he goes. But we start where we're at. We start right where we're at, and people ask the question, who, me, really? I'm not a leader. I can't do this stuff. I don't know how to lead people. I don't know how to lead people. I've never been a leader. Where do I start? I'm not good with people. And I have heard every excuse, probably especially in the church setting, where I can't lead Sunday school class. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. I'm just not good with people. I can't talk. I had a terrible stuttering problem, and I still talk way too fast, so forgive me for that. But I had a really bad stuttering problem when I was, Scott again knows all that. When I was 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, I stuttered really, really bad, and there's just words I couldn't even say. And so if I can do it, you can do it. Just lead, just start, do something. And I think God slowly gave me little things to do, and I kept saying yes. And I'm thankful that I did. My dad pushed me in some of that stuff as well. And so we all want to do the big things, right? Everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change the toilet paper roll. So that's just how life is. You want to do something big. We all want to do the big things. We all want to go and save the world, change the world. I'm going to do big things for God, but we don't want to do the things that nobody else wants to do. And that's what I want to encourage you to start with this morning. Start exactly where you're at. There's nobody in this room that can't be a leader. You may not be a leader today, but you can become one, and you can grow into one. And change that toilet paper roll, if no other reason, just to stay married if you're married. That would be a good reason for nothing else. But do that at work. And I was at work the other day, and I saw one of our guys. One of the things I hate is Cintas brings the towel dispenser thingies, that, you see them in the gas stations. We have them all over the place. I'm not sure why we use those, but we do. And changing them is awful. I hate them. I hate them really, really bad. And I saw, I went into to use the restroom, and I saw that it was down. And so one of our other guys walked in behind me and was quicker than I was doing his business, and walked out there, and so he did it. And he just grabbed the bull by the horns, grabbed the new roll, went and got the new roll. He didn't have time for it, but he went and did it and did the hard things. That's even worse than the toilet paper roll, because you got to feed it through and bring it back, and I always get it wrong. It doesn't work quite right and all that. That's the kind of things I'm talking about, is start leading by doing the things that nobody else wants to do. Change that role. Start with the things that are currently under your care and give it 100%. That's where you start. Everybody has something under their care. Whether you have nobody working for you at work, whether you have no committee here at church you're part of, whatever it might be, you still have somebody that you can start with. It might just be your wife and 2 kids. That's fine. Start with the things that are currently under control and give them the best. And maybe for you, it's starting to show up to church on time, rather than being 4 minutes late every time. But lead your family in that way. Lead your family, love your children and your wife the way God called you to. Lead the three guys you work with every day. Do the best with that you possibly can. Lead those people. Be on time. Show up on time. Be 15 minutes early. Lead in that way. That's what leaders do. That's what it takes to lead people, and that's how you get a chance to lead people. Is when your supervisor sees that, or here at church you're recognized for saying that guy he's growing as a leader, and I think he could do this, and I think he could do well at this. Teach a Sunday school class, even though it's intimidating, and Phil's been doing it for years, or whatever it might be. Phil can do it better than you can. That's true. He probably can. But if you're asked to do those things, do them. Volunteer in the community. Say yes to the small opportunities that God does give you. And we always, again, we want to do the big ones, but say yes to the small ones. And through that, God will let you lead people in bigger ways. I'm sure He will. So on the starting with family, and I know you're talking about family. Scott told me that this morning. You're going to talk about leading in your family, and I understand that. I wasn't aware of that, but it's really close to my heart, because I feel like we can't really lead people outside of our homes unless we're leading our homes well. So hopefully that segues well into what I'm sharing after this. Or whoever shares that next in leading the family. But I firmly believe this is kind of one of my mottos in life is this. True success, it's when the people closest to you love and respect you the most. So you can be the hero and go to work every morning and be a jerk when you get home, or you can be the hero and go save the world and be on the school board and do all these things. But if you come home and your kids are not in order, and Tony's not taking care of his family like he should, and Joyce is frustrated, then maybe you should just give up leading other people, because this is where it starts. And I just firmly believe that. True success is when those people closest to us love and respect us the most. And if you've failed in that, that's okay. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is now. So start today. Start with where you're at. Coming a little full circle here on a couple things here. In my leadership journey over the past number of years, I've been so blessed to meet a number of the leaders that I looked up to, and I've just been so blessed. I feel like I've said yes to a lot of things that were scary in the beginning, and that God has led me to, and God has opened doors in some unbelievable ways, especially in the last couple of years. And I told you about this book that I'd never read, and I read after my dad passed away. 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. In the past few years, I've had the privilege of actually becoming friends with John Maxwell, and I've spent quite a bit of time with him. It's great to meet heroes. I'll go to that slide. It's great to meet heroes that you had. When I read this book, I was just blown away with his leadership. I was drawn to him and what he did, and I've just had a chance to just speak with him a lot in the past few years, and he's the real deal. And there's a lot of other leaders that are doing well, so I'm not lifting him up more than he should, but he's exactly who I was hoping he would be in this book and all the other books that I've read of his. And this morning I'm going to give you guys a copy. You guys want to grab those guys? So this morning I'm going to give you a copy. It's a signed copy from John, 21 Laws of Leadership. It's actually the updated version of this 25th anniversary. So it's a little bit different than this original one, but the exact same laws that are there. And like it says on the front cover of that book, these are the 21 Laws of Leadership. It's a lot more than I can cover this morning, but follow them and people will follow you. And that's what I believe to be true. And don't stop with this book. I want to give you this book this morning, but don't stop with that book. Do other things to grow in leadership. And if you do nothing but serve your family in a better way, it was worth it. If you do nothing but serve the church here in a better way, it was absolutely worth it. That's how I feel. The best leaders understand it's not about them. It's about the people they're leading. The best leaders change and transform the lives of people they're leading. The best leaders add value to the people they lead every day. And I think that's what you're going to find in that book. So yeah, that's a summary of what we just went over. Thanks so much for your attention this morning, and I hope I gave you a little bit of an appetite to grow as a leader and to continue to lead people. And so I just want to say now, go lead people. Start today, go lead. Wherever God's calling you at, say yes to the next thing that next phone call or next text you get, say yes. Go start somewhere. And God will take you to other places as well with that. Scott suggested a short Q&A session here, I guess is what you usually do. And again, don't have the answers here, but I tend to talk too fast, as I mentioned. And so if I can clarify anything at all or discuss something together as a group here, happy to do that this morning. Who'll be first?
Brian, any thoughts on how to reclaim lost ground? You've not been a good leader, and you've got a team that's not happy. How do you get that turned around?
Were you wrong? Was the leader doing things wrong, possibly? Possibly. I would say humility. I would go back and sit down and tell them exactly what you did wrong. You can usually find something you did wrong. See, in fact, that happened to me. It happened to me a month ago. I was, I'll just share this. I'll share this because a month ago, we tithe out of the business. And so we share with our employees confidentially what we tithe out of the business. They see that number. And so we it's the why that we work for at PWI. We say this is what you're not just building cranes, you're not just making mezzanines and welding. This is what you're doing. Every day that you work, we're giving this money to, we drilled a well in Kenya. We just do different things in the community, especially here. And we've been a little soft, we've been a little slow. And so there's a lot of grumbling going on about that. And so we lost a lot of ground. People were upset about, well, why are we cutting back in wages and giving money to the community? It's ridiculous. And I wanted to scream. I was really upset. I was really hurt by some of the comments that came back, and there's a lot of behind-the-scenes grumbling going on. So it was a lot of lost ground, to your question. And so I got in front of all the employees, and I said, obviously I made a mistake and didn't explain clearly enough why this is so important to me. It's not going to change. It's not really your money to give away. First of all, it's net profit that I'll choose to give away. But I've done a bad job. I just said, I've done a bad job of explaining it to you. So I have a couple other leaders that are going to do a better job than I can. So I turned it over to them. And let me tell you, those other three leaders preached to them for an hour at this meeting about what our why is about. And it fixed it. They did a better job than I could have done because it felt very personal for me. So I think I talked for about 2 minutes and sat down. And he went on, the one guy went on about about the Israelites complaining in the wilderness. I had 3 guys each preached like a 20-minute sermon about this. And so I feel that's what you do. But I felt like I did a poor job of explaining it in the past. That's what I just admitted that. I said, I'll be humble enough to say I obviously didn't sell this enough. So it's my fault. So I think we just, we go back and we just say, how did I not make this clear enough? Or what did I do wrong? How did I not say this in a good enough way that you guys understood the vision? Because there's some visions I don't think are negotiable or open for discussion or vote. Some of them are, sometimes you just need to say we're going this way, So does that make sense, Steve?
Ryan, have you ever had a team member where you're not sure if they're just, the personality just irritates you, or they're actually a bad team member?
I have brothers. Does that work or not?
Yeah, I guess just what have you?
Yeah.
How do you work through that?
Man. Yeah. Most good people, if they're really good people, they're good people, and you can work beside them. Usually, if you're rubbing wrong with them every day, probably a lot of other people are as well. That's what I've found. And so usually, there was one team member that really worked best by himself, and it's a nice way of saying he didn't get along well with others. And so we did that. We put him in a role that he was by himself every day, and it worked for 3 or 4 years until even that became poison, and he had to be let go. So it's rarely just you, Tony, I would say. Does that make sense? I don't think it's rare. I think it's rarely just you. And there's times where you might be able to say, look, I think and my brother's a good example of that. We try to be careful that we're not, I would never work in the same office as them every day. It probably wouldn't work. I mean, there'd be sparks flying, but as a rule, good people are good people. and if they're good enough to be on the bus and going with you, yeah. Does that make sense? They're probably good enough to get along with and easy to get along with.
Is a leader allowed to have a bad day?
Absolutely. If not, I'm in trouble. I'm in big trouble. Yeah. Yeah, I think you have grace for those around you and say, man, I send a lot of texts at 5:30 at night, a lot, where I just say, guys, I was this today. And I'll call myself some names. This is what I was today. I was out of control, or I shouldn't have overreacted there. Can I have your forgiveness? I do that a lot of days. And I think that's again, it's the humility. Say, I messed up, I screwed up, but I made too much drama out of that issue. I should have let somebody else take care of it, or I should have just ignored it, whatever that is. I think so. Moses had a bad day and hit the rock, right? I mean, and it cost him a lot. But Leon, what's it like leading in school?
I was going to ask, how do you prioritize some of these things? So, thanks for the talk, by the way. It's really, really motivating. But as I was thinking of leading a team, but then also needing to work with the team,
Mm-hmm.
maybe in a more unique way than like a factory job or something, how do I prioritize my energy? Because honestly, some days I feel I'll have energy to love
Mm-hmm.
people and care about them, or I'll have energy to do things, but not both. And that's something I need to grow on.
Yeah.
I recognize that. But how would you say I should prioritize all that stuff?
Because you're physically doing the work. You have to get ready to teach. You have to get ready to prep. Or you're prepping for teaching every day. Yeah. It's hard, Leon. Yeah, I would say on the love side, it's not negotiable. You got to love. And you may not be able to bring them coffees that morning, every morning. You know what I'm saying? Those days, you might be able to do extra, but I think they always need to feel cared for and loved. And not that you don't have those bad days, but there might be things that you do. You might not share. I would grab maybe the word vision. You might not be casting vision every day. You may not have energy for that. But I think loving the people you're serving, it's got to happen. It's got to happen, or you're going to, especially in a school, especially in a nonprofit. You're the church. You're the place where, especially, you need to get along, and you've got a lot less title and position maybe than what, because it's kind of a nonprofit, and does that make sense? Than what Pat's guys do working for him. You know, you got to come here Sunday morning and see them or whatever. But yeah, I'd say there's room to wiggle on all the others, but I think you need to teach every day and love the people you're serving every day. But maybe twice a year you're casting a vision. One thing I didn't say about casting a vision is that I often call myself the chief repeating officer. It's a common term, because that's the other part of casting vision. You have to say it over and over and over and over again. So maybe it's every Monday morning in a staff meeting, Leon, you're talking about where we're going, what we're going to do better this year, and reminding you we're going to do better. We're going to go out and greet the kids when they come in, whatever that is. That's the chief repeating officer. You're just repeating that vision over and over again. People forget in hours. People forget and act like they've never heard it before. And so and you feel like you're saying it 100th time, but often they forgot. So, anybody else? Time to close here.
What's the best way to make a decision when there are like 5 decisions that could be made?
I mean, how to make the right one?
Yeah, how do you pick the right one?
Scott, help us out here, brother.
Well, I think it starts with reserving the right to make a better decision and make a decision. I think that's something I often say is I'll reserve the right to make a better decision.
Yeah. That's good.
I've heard me say it before. I think often I have to look at the facts, make the best decision, how to move ahead.
Yeah.
If it's wrong tomorrow, then we change.
Yeah. You know what I find, Patrick, is I have people coming in my office every day. The world's on fire. The world's coming to an end. It's always that. It's always, you're never going to believe. It's even my direct reports still do that sometimes, and I'm working on that, because they often handle their own. But the big ones, the world's crashing and everybody's going to die. I mean, that's literally how it feels sometimes as a leader. And you got to react right now. And I would challenge you to say, no, you don't. You can almost always say, and you get pushback on this, but you can say, no, we're going to wait till tomorrow. I need to sleep over this one, because I don't know what to do today. And you look around and you say, what's the facts? Is everybody really going to die today? No, they're not. They're not. Is the building really on fire? No, it's not. And does that email have to be responded to tonight? No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to. It's okay. But tomorrow morning, you pray about it, and tomorrow morning, wake up. I almost always know what to do the next day. Almost always. Like, it's just like I wake up and I go, yeah, that's it, right there. And I don't know why I didn't think about it yesterday, but I always say, I need a day of margin. Just give me a day of margin, and tomorrow I'll know what to do. And don't always make the right decision, but that one, don't be pressured into a decision that doesn't be made today. That's your call as a leader, is to say, we don't need to make it right now. I need time. Okay, I think we'll call it a wrap here, guys. Thanks again. It's been a pleasure being with you guys this morning. Thank you.